Good evening and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today, we will be discussing the preparedness of Indian armed forces in the wake of Chinese aggression. The India-China military face-off is continuing on the line of actual control even 2 months after it started. The Chinese aggression in fact brought the two countries to the brink of a military confrontation. While efforts are being made to defuse the situation, one thing is clear: China can no longer be trusted. While it is prolonging the current standoff, it can launch even a bigger military operation against India. So, in this situation, there is a question in everybody's mind: how prepared are Indian armed forces in terms of capacity to counter any bigger aggression by China, like a war? Do we have the required military assets and capabilities to deal with such a situation? In the agenda today, we will try to understand the situation from retired Brigadier Vinod Datta, an army veteran who had participated in the Kargil conflict of 1999. But before we welcome Brigadier Datta, we have a look at this small report.
The latest transgression by China on the line of actual control is not the first such instance, but it is the bloodiest and largest in scale in over 5 decades. The Chinese military build-up made it clear that the operation was pre-planned. It was a wake-up call for India, since a false impression had been created by China for nearly 3 decades that it was not an adversary but a rival. As it was on the brink of war, India had to take a relook at its capacities in terms of hardware assets in comparison to China. China is also extending its threat to India in collusion with Pakistan, from the land borders to the maritime domain, while stepping up its naval forays into the Indian Ocean region. It also helping Pakistan build its maritime combat power in the overall attempt to stymie India in its own backyard. China is assiduously following a twin-pronged approach by facilitating Pakistan to build its fledgling navy while hunting for more overseas bases in the Indian Ocean region. Therefore, India needs to set up its preparedness and capabilities by boosting its assets. In the midst of the standoff with China, the government on 2nd of July announced that 21 MiG-29 fighters would be procured from Russia and 59 existing ones would be upgraded. The government also said that 12 Sukhoi MKI planes would be bought from Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. These decisions are hugely crucial to meet the requirements of the Indian Air Force, which has been witnessing depletion of its fighter and squadrons. The Indian Army is also planning to acquire hand-launched, remotely controlled unmanned aerial vehicle Raven from the US and state-of-the-art Israeli Spike Firefly loitering ammunition to add lethally to its ground infantry, apart from long-range precision artillery shells with a range of over 40 kilometers. The Indian Navy is also going to commission its second ballistic missile-firing nuclear submarine INS Arighat later this year. Bureau Report.
So let's welcome Brigadier Datta to the program. Welcome. So let me begin by asking the Chinese aggression which we saw in the line of actual control. It is believed that it was a pre-planned action by China and not the off-the-cuff or maybe some impulsive action. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a well orchestrated operation and well thought out, but badly executed. Timings were good, but very badly executed by the CPC, and there was no coordination between the ELA and the CPC. And unfortunately, world was against China, and because of the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation. So, what China had thought is to be a win-win situation by flexing its muscles. I mean, it turned out to be a misadventure on part of China. And India, I must appreciate the diplomatic channels, the military diplomacy, and the government talks, that they could garner so much of support, whether it was at diplomatic channels or at, in terms of world politics, that the tables turned for China.
So, Brigadier Datta, after this aggression, there are concerns, and I think justifiably so, that China may, even if this impasse is resolved, China may go for a bigger action, maybe militarily and all. So, what is your assessment about it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. China is going to, if you go back in history, China has always followed this kind of tactic. It was basically like, what we call in the army parlance is, he fired a tester round just to see that, just to fathom that what kind of preparation, what kind of response, and what kind of jingoism is there, in India. But it realized that India has got a muscular nationalism now. It has got a more powerful and formidable army, and the policies of the government also have undergone a change, and they are not going to accept anything, not even a single inch, at least in Ladakh sector, that they are going to cede to China. So the Chinese, they are quite, shrewd in their policies. So it was basically a tester round which they fired to fathom our preparation.
So, if that situation comes, if China launches a bigger attack, how prepared are we in terms of capacities, in terms of military assets? I'm not talking about the bravado of our armed forces, but they have to be equipped properly so that they can fight the war in a better way, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you. There is, there is asymmetry as far as our military hardware is concerned, and both in numerical strength as well as the equipment capabilities. But the terrain configuration, the government's outlook has literally changed, because the kind of weapon acquisition which was lying in the, in the cold storage, they have been pulled out, and the fast-track acquisition has started. You see, numerically, we cannot, match, because we have a 13 million army, 13 lakhs, and they've got 25 lakhs. The hardware also is, on a plus side as far as Chinese army is concerned. The cause of worry is basically the Chinese Navy. The Chinese Navy has got, exponential, advantage over the Indian Navy, because China basically is looking for a major role or a major, takeover in the Indian Ocean region, South China Sea and East China Sea. So his main focus is going to be that India should not interfere with his preparations. But I want to tell you one thing, that if you go back in history, you will realize that the Chinese army, I'm talking of 1100 and 1200 AD, where India had a supremacy in naval warfare during the reign of Rajendra Chol, and our limits of Indian boundaries were right up to Southeast Asia. And the Chinese, Chinese Navy used to come to India for refit and vitrification of its vessels. China has really, in last 40 years, has developed its defense production, in such a substantial manner, and in an organized and a deliberate attempt to impose herself as a superpower, at least in Asia, if not in the world. Unfortunately, we could not give the right kind of momentum to our defense production. Unfortunately, we have a system where we are lopsided. Like, we are very keen on sending a spacecraft to find out whether, there is water on moon, but we are not really, bothered कि हमारे नलकों में पानी आता है कि नहीं आता है.
Very true, yeah.
So, yeah, we have not been able to, make an a sustainable aircraft, whereas we have our own place in in space industry. We are not able to even make a small arms infantry weapon system. The INSAS was an utter failure. So what we need is that we have to have a coherent and a comprehensive approach so that the defense production can really shoot up.
So, as you said that India is more, we can send satellites, but it is very ironic that we have not been able to produce a fighter plane. Now, LCA took almost 40 years to be developed, and it's not of the first grade category, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, there is what is the, requirement of the day is that we must have a work audit. It is not that we are deficit of funds. It is not that we are deficit of technology. It is not that we are short of, human brains. We have the biggest human resource capital in the world. Our engineers, our scientists are working abroad and manufacturing wonders. But unfortunately, there is no work audit on these government organizations like, DRDO. You'll find a bunch of scientists working there, but their output is zook. They are not accountable for anything. They are not able to focus on the need of Indian Army. What happens is, whatever the Army projects, it falls into the, deaf ears of the Babudam, and it is at their sweet wish, they want to decide that which weapon is to be acquired and which is not to be acquired. Little realizing what are the requirements of ground forces, what is the threat perception, and what are the theater requirements of any weapon system. Like you rightly brought out, that we have not been able to even manufacture, an aircraft or a tank or a small arm weapon system. The industries which are there, they are underutilized. They are not being able to tap their potential, and the soldier, at the trenches or at the border is found wanting for a superior equipment which he is capable and which he deserves rightly.
So, don't you think that policy over the decades has been, wrong? Because we always depended on purchases rather than producing our own. Like we have been procuring MiG fighters and Mirages and all. So, but like take the example of Rafale. It took 12, 13 years to identify a plane, and then it was scrapped. When you identify 126 of MMRCA, then you, after 12 years, 10 years of all the tendering and other processes, you finalize an aircraft, then the whole tender goes haywire. We don't know what happened. So if you take 15 years to just finalize an aircraft to procure it, so where are we heading to?
Yeah, I agree with you, because you see, the threat perception is very dynamic. It changes with the technology. You see, gone are the days of warfare when you had, saber rattling, or when you had, warfare from the trenches. Today it is a technological warfare. And if you recall, earlier, the equity was considered into numerical strength. Then we, came into an era where, the science took over and the numerical strength was relegated. Today, it is all technological warfare. I mean, you may not require those many forces. But unfortunately, what happens is, like, restructuring has been, ordered. If you recall, say about 2 years back, there was a lot of hue and cry on cutting down manpower. So about 150,000 troops were, agreed that they will be reduced, and that amount will be, diverted to buy equipment, and it will be used for capital procurement. But it has been seen, if you go back in 1998, a similar exercise was done, where, it was agreed between the defense forces, army in particular, that 50,000 troops will be cut down. And say about 600 crore rupees will be diverted to buy new equipment or modern equipment. But unfortunately, that did not happen. We lost those 50,000 people, and the government pocketed that money, and it was diverted somewhere else.
So such kind of promises or the false promises which the government does, I mean, this is not in the best interest of the army as well as to the nation. Today, when the entire nation has been held, for ransom by China, and everybody knows that it was not a minor incursion, now people are running helter and skelter. I was part of Kargil war. The same thing happened. The Indian Army kept on telling the Ministry of Defense.
In fact, Brigadier Datta, I wanted to come to that. Like there is a perception कि जब आग लगे तभी कुआं खोदो. That is actually it happened during Kargil and it's happening again now. Now we are going to procure MiG-29s and Sukhoi we have ordered and upgradation of MiG-29. But why not earlier?
Yeah, you see, I agree with you because you see we have no strategic thinking. Our thinking is very myopic, very, it is short in memory. We have no institutional memory. Like if you see Kargil war, after that Subramaniam committee was formed. It gave recommendations. It took us 15 years to appoint a CDS. It gave recommendations that 2 formations should be there overlooking China, 14 Corps and a mountain strike corps which came up in 2011.
I wanted to come to that Subramanian committee also recommended creation of a mountain corps. There was some development, some progress, and suddenly it disappeared in I think 2013, isn't it?
Yeah, it is because you see our policies are not guided by national interests. Our policies are guided by national parties or petty politics. Like if I find no reason. There is a saying which says, good is the best enemy. So, in the search of best equipment, we lose out on, good virtues of certain equipment. So, the parties which are there, whenever there is a crisis, you see, there are 4 things on which there should be no party politics. One is defense, education, health, and the nationalism. There should be no party politics on that. You must see from only one prism, and that is nationality, the nation, your country. Unfortunately, what happens is that we get into these party politics and we try to scuttle down the procurement which one party has initiated, and we try to find out, faults in that. With the result, the army suffers, the soldier suffers, and the neighbors get a chance to come and roar at our boundaries or at our borders, and which is a sad commentary.
But I have noticed, in fact, that during the previous government, several deals, several procurements were finalized and then scrapped just because somebody had complained. Because the government or the defense minister, then the defense minister, wanted to be clean. He didn't want any questions to be raised and inquiry order. So that, I think, slowed down the procurement, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you. You see, being clean, being honest is one thing, but depriving the right equipment, the right weaponry to a soldier is no bravado. You see, if you're clean, if you're honest, you should not be scared of anything. I find no reason why you should not ink any deal or any contract thinking that I'm going to dirty my hands or the government is going to, face some flakes on it. I mean, if you are, I'm recalled of an incident, I was a young captain when one of my commandant, he told me that I want these procurements to be done immediately and I want them by weekend. So I told him, sir, we have to have, some kind of procurement obligations to follow. He told me one thing, as long as you are not taking anything home or I am not taking anything home, let price be no consideration. But it is a requirement, it is an operational requirement, go ahead. So, you require such kind of leaders. If your conscience is clear, I mean, you should not deprive your army for the best weaponry.
Brigadier Datta, in fact, in terms of procuring the weaponry, heavy weaponry, there is always questions about lobbying over why should anybody lobby and middlemen. In fact, I have believed I hold the belief that this middleman thing should be maybe formalized, and maybe the commission should be fixed. Middlemen are everywhere. If you go to buy property, you have to go through a middleman, no?
Yeah.
Otherwise, how will you shortlist? Then you have to go for trials and whether the asset, the military equipment, hardware is worthy of the requirements, isn't it? So, what is your assessment? What is your view on this?
Well, I agree with you. You see, a middleman is a facilitator. He is basically there, he's a link between the procurement and the person or the companies who are making these equipment. So there is no harm. And what you said is right, that it should be formalized. Even if you go back to British days, if you see any old contract, it says 5% departmental charges or handling charges.
Yes.
Which was clear indication that these middlemen and all, they were all paid out of that. Because, you see, there are no free lunches. People are working. If they are giving you their services, they are bound to charge, something from you.
Yes.
It firstly facilitates. It also holds them accountable should there be any contractual failures or any breaches or any kind of, fraud at a later stage. You can hold them responsible for it.
Right.
They are going to speed up the procurement. They know the pulse of the environment. So instead of, shunning them, we must formalize them. We must fix their boundaries. We must have terms of references that, okay, these are the guidelines which are going to be followed. And their services should be utilized.
And create competitiveness among them also.
Yes, it should be. It should be, because you see, there are a large number of big ticket procurements which are being done in defense. And now, of course, there is a lot of transparency and there is a lot of, cleanness in the system. But earlier, these procurements, they were much sought after. And now there are not very many takers for this.
So, we get as a last brief comment because we are running out of time. So, if you can sum up. So, that means we need to have a relook at our procurement policy and maybe speed up, isn't it?
Yeah, we must have a relook at our procurement policies. We must have strategic thinking. We must have long-term goals. We must understand our equipment profile. You see, 68% of the equipment is, vintage. Only 24% is current, and 8% is only state-of-art equipment in the army. So we have to have a strategic, outlook and a thinking, and it has to be a long term. It cannot be party based, it cannot be government based, or it cannot be personality oriented. So we have to look from a greater horizon, which may be running into years, of roll-on plans.
So we need to have a political, long-term, and strategic view for the defense sector, isn't it? Thank you so much for participating in this debate, Brigadier Datta. This is all we have in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another interesting topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.